Thank you for joining us today for the Parallel Technologies Virtual Technology Showcase. We are happy that you have joined us. Traditionally, we do our open house at our facility here in Eden Prairie around this time. Obviously, things have changed with COVID, so we're looking to bring the same content, knowledge, technologies to the table in a virtual setting this year, and we are thankful that you've joined us. Thank you to our clients and partners to be able to participate in this. It's great to have you here today. We'll be on for about an hour. We'll be covering a host of different technologies, bringing some subject matter experts to the table, really talking around those. My name is Mark Bondi. I am the Director of Sales and Technology, or Sales and Marketing here at Parallel Technologies. I'll be moderating the forum, so we'll have an opportunity for Q&A. So if you have a question, please submit it. We'll be able to see those. We'll get to as many of them as we can. Obviously, we do have a limited time, so we won't be able to get to all of them. So publish them, put them in, and we'll be able to read them and ask them as time permits. There are prizes. As I said, we traditionally do our open house at this time of year, and we do have prize giveaways at that open house, and we wanted to make sure that we continued down that road of having prizes. There are some rules for those prizes, so I wanted to get those on the table. The first piece is the prizes will go to random attendees. We're going to do a random drawing at the end of the event. So we'll be announcing those after the event. They can only be won by clients or prospective clients. So people in the partner channel, manufacturers will not be able to win prizes. And you do have to participate in the duration of this event to be able to win the prizes. We have the ability to know who logged in, and we'll be using that as our subset to draw randomly from. So we got some cool stuff, a Yeti cooler, Apple iPod, Top Golf, as well as some Visa gift cards. Quickly, we wanted just to hit on who is Parallel Technologies. We have been a Minnesota-owned and operated company since 1983. We have offices in Eden Prairie as well as in Omaha, Nebraska. We're committed to our clients and our people. We've been a top 150 workplaces to work, Minnesota top 50 company. We've seen tremendous growth over the years, really using technology to help our clients solve their business problems. So from a process perspective, we really want to understand, assess, if we're looking at the wheel on the right-hand side, assess our clients' business needs, assess their environments, understand what their goals and objectives are so we can effectively meet those goals and objectives with technology. And then we bring in the design phase of the process where we bring the subject matter expertise to the table and really look at, hey, how can this technology apply to this environment and we can meet our clients' needs. From there, we have a host of technicians, programmers, people that can put this technology into place and implement it in your environment. From there, once the project's done, it's really important to us that we continue the relationships. It's not just about putting the project in, it's about supporting those technology over the life cycle of the technology. So that day two support becomes really an important part of the process where we can manage whether that's a break fix process or whether that's proactively managing your system to get the most bang for the buck out of what we've deployed. And lastly in that process is that analyze. Hey, how do we use the data that these systems are creating to be able to improve upon that solution, be able to manage your business in a better way and deliver value over time as these systems mature. We are about intelligent buildings, and we want to empower people through intelligent buildings. That is what our business is. That is what we invest our time and energy. That is the vision of our company. And we see intelligent buildings as a unified system of network connected hardware and software, providing a clear view into the building's performance, whether that's controlling and monitoring the electricity, the lighting, the plumbing, the HVAC system, security system, and more. If it's connecting to that category cable, we want to be involved with that technology. We see some examples of that on the right-hand side, whether that's vape detection, whether that's thermal cameras. More and more devices are being put onto the network. You hear the term Internet of Things. As these things come onto your network, we want to be able to help you make decisions around them, implement solid technology, and be able to maximize the value of those technologies over time. As we do this, it's not a solo effort. Our belief is it really is a team game, and we want to bring subject matter expertise to the table really throughout the process. So from the beginning of the sales cycle, we have sales, pre-sales, and estimation resources that can really help us understand the objectives, know where your business is heading, so we can define those objectives and then bring technologies to bear to be able to support them. As we engage with clients around their projects, we have a dedicated group of project managers that help us move these projects forward, get them implemented to the right expectations, are done on time, are done in an effective manner, and really help that process along. Engineering is the other piece of this, and we really value engineers. We want to really highlight those skills and bring that kind of smart person to the table to be able to help navigate the decision-making process as well as the implementation. And we'll see in the videos today and the question and answer, we'll see some of our great engineers and their skills that they bring to the table. I think it really allows us to meet the needs of our clients at a deeper level and make sure we're solving problems over the long haul. And from the engineering side, we move into the field, and we have a breadth and depth of field resources across multiple disciplines, 52 technicians in the Twin Cities, 20 technicians in Omaha, and these technicians are trained, certified across the product spectrum that we support, and they are able to get out there and really do that work in the day in, day out basis to bring these systems to life, put them into play, and deliver to our clients day in and day out. And lastly, service and support is a major piece of the puzzle. As these systems get implemented, we want to be able to support our clients over the long haul, have dedicated support technicians, dedicated service desks, managed service contracts to be able to do this day in and day out. As we go through the presentation today, we're going to dive deeper into the various technologies. This is our business development management team. These gentlemen are out there working with our clients to help define the objectives, help bring our resources to the table, do the teaching, education around the technologies that are out there. And as you're looking at the content that we're delivering today, if you have questions, if you want to understand more, if you have really any need that you have related to these technologies or others, these guys are the guys to reach out to. They'll be able to help you really navigate those waters and move that process forward. Last year, we introduced our innovation lab at our open house, and it is really the culmination of the vision of how do we pull the intelligent building process together? How do we show how various technologies work together, how they interact together? How do we bring that to the table? How do we create that environment? And the Innovation Lab is really how we've helped to bring our practice to the next level. And it's a space that has a host of different technologies, whether that's building automation technologies, DAS technologies, whether that's cellular, public safety, structured cabling technologies, whether that's the physical security realm and the various pieces of the physical security practice, video surveillance, card access control, intrusion, license plate recognition, key monitoring, the list really goes on. So the Innovation Lab is a great place to be able to see these technologies in action. And this year has been a little tricky with COVID. Obviously, we expected more traffic initially into the lab, but we're starting to see the traffic increase. We have safety protocols so we can really bring people into the lab in a safe and productive manner with social distancing, masks, etc., to be able to look at these technologies. And really, for our clients, we see this Innovation Lab as a place for you to come and work with us to try out the technologies that we have, see them in action, ask questions, really begin to understand how they work in a way that you can physically see. And we like challenges, so if you have things that you're trying to work through, problems you're trying to solve, this may be a place where we can put those things on the table and find ways to solve those problems in creative ways that really drive your business forward. This event wouldn't be possible, and really our business is predicated on partnerships. So we want to thank our sponsors that have helped put this event together. So thank you to Graybar, to Genotech, Access Communications, Data Straight, Panasonic. We appreciate your support. We hope next year we'll be able to physically see all of you, but really appreciate your support with helping us to pull this event together. And as we start kind of the meatier portion of the content, we have 4 sections that we'll be going through to really drive into technologies. And these sections will have a 3 to 4 minute video where we outline the technology, really kind of provide that baseline understanding of what it is, how it's applied, and show you a piece of it. And from there, we're going to bring on the subject matter expert after each of these video segments to do the Q&A. So after the emergency responder system segment, we'll have our subject matter expert, and that would be the time to ask questions around this specific technology. So with that, I'll move forward into this segment. We can watch the video, and we'll be back in a few.
An emergency responder system is an in-building system that allows you to keep first responders connected anytime they're entering or exiting a facility. This is a different frequency and channel outside of your cell phones. This is a 2-way radio communication, keeping all EMS, police, fire, and first responders in one channel, in one communication when entering and exiting a facility. It's important to have a first responders system in place, not only to keep your employees and your building safe, but as well as keeping the first responders safe. This was implemented back around 9/11 as EMS and first responders were entering and exiting the facility. They were not able to communicate. Now we have this emergency responder system in place, allowing all of these first responders to communicate when entering and exiting the facility. Parallel on the emergency responder side, we do everything from the design, assess, implementation, commissioning, even working directly with the authority having jurisdiction, as well as the fire marshal in your local area. We will work directly with them to make sure that we get your building completely up to code per their requirements, per your location. We enter into your facility, step 1, and start looking at the existing infrastructure, from your drywall to your concrete to how many levels you have going up and down the facility. We'll then use the PC-Tel scanner to check the frequencies that are outside your facility. Once we have figured out exactly what frequency and band your emergency responders are utilizing in your area, we will program that into the PC-Tel scanner. We will then upload some floor plans, and we will start walking around your floors, taking readings, coming up with the different thresholds according to code within your area. Once we've completed roughly a 20 grid test throughout each floor and facility, we then take the report. We create a report that allows us to give it back to the customer as well as the fire marshal. And if the system does not pass, that's where we'll continue forward to looking at the design, assess, and how to implement a system within your facility. Once the system is installed via a distributed antenna system, we then utilize the PC-Tel scanner again to go through and create what we call a final walk report that is created for the customer as well as the fire marshals to show and prove that the first responder system in the building is up to code.
Wonderful. So we're going to move to the question and answer section of the emergency responder system. And before we do that, I want to introduce Phil Lee. If he was seen on the video, Phil comes to us with a depth of experience around distributed antenna systems, whether that's cellular DAS or public safety DAS. He is IB waived certified, so that's a real help in making sure that we help design systems that meet the specific needs of the client. And with that, maybe I start there, Phil, while the questions come in. I know we're on a little bit of a delay. As the question comes in, could you just give us a little bit of background on what an IB waive certification is?
Yeah, absolutely. So ultimately, IB wave is a key tool used in creating any RF design. Allows us to look at propagation. We can ultimately create your facility or building back in IB wave draw the walls, the doors, the roof, the floor plan completely full on through, add in our antennas, add in our specific frequencies bands, pending the type of solution we're looking for. And it gives us really that close look at a perfect solution.
Right. Thank you, Phil. Kind of looking at the questions. So here's a question around, I'm a building owner. Do you know if there are any liabilities associated? There's some talk of code. I think they're getting at, are there any liabilities of not implementing or putting in a public safety data system?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a tough question there. You know, we kind of tiptoe around it because ultimately we implement these systems. So it's not negligent to not install one. It's ultimately, you know, we want to teach all of our customers and clients about the risks and try and mitigate the risks. You know, I think as a building owner, that's something exactly you want to do, make your employees, your personnel feel safe. You know, in your building. So ultimately, there is some liability, yes. How exactly that water gets navigated is still being determined.
Got it. So another question here. It was spoken that there is code for first responders. I'm wondering what that code is. Essentially, they're looking for help being able to promote this within their facility as a requirement. Well, what is the code? Where is that? How do people find that? You're on mute, Phil.
Sorry about that. Each code is going to change ultimately from each state, each jurisdiction. So ultimately, you got to work with your local area. We as Parallel can help navigate those waters on who exactly who we can talk to within your area. Ultimately, this comes back to the local fire code official, and that's where every solution we look at, we're going to work with that local fire code official to make sure that we're providing the proper solution.
That's a good answer. I think, you know, from the sales process perspective and working with our team, we can help navigate those waters. Phil's got excellent contacts there. So as we get the specifics of your environment, we can definitely help manage that. Looking at another question here. So I've seen a lot of variation in pricing of these systems. How do I know? How do I know what I'm getting for that pricing? I've just seen a wide variation, is what they're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different solutions out there. Not all solutions are equal. We're really going to look at your facility type, your location. You know, are you a warehouse? Are you an office building? So ultimately, there's a lot of different varieties of systems out there, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to make sure that we're putting the proper solution into place. And two, a lot of the things we're seeing is just maybe either some over engineering or ultimately there's competitors out there that are willing to just kind of throw some antennas onto a floor plan to provide a solution that you maybe as a customer don't know if it's feasible or not. That's why we utilize IBWave to make sure that their software, their exact items are within that software. If it's not an IBWave for us to design with, typically we don't even touch a system like that.
As we're looking at a facility, are there specific areas that you typically have more challenges with versus less challenges? Are there specific environments that are harder, or is it the same across the board?
No, we're really trying to teach a lot of our customers how to implement these things when it comes to a retrofit building, when it comes to a new build. The code really is determined off of kind of those two different things. And ultimately, we need to look at the height of the building. If you're over a certain height, you will be mandated to put it in, just like the instance we saw out at during 9/11. A lot of the times for retrofit facilities, we're seeing the lower levels needed to be covered. Anything below grade, below ground parking garages, below ground, data centers, below ground office buildings. A lot of the times, anything in a downtown area, you're going to have less coverage. So ultimately, it comes down to your type of build, if it's new or if it's a retrofit, the size of your building, as well as, do you have any underground areas in your building?
Wonderful. Thank you, Phil. Really appreciate your insight and your subject matter expertise. We have Phil available to us as we work through the design element of these systems. He can be available to go on sites with the PCTEL device, do walkthroughs, talk through the technologies. We have great presentations around, hey, where is this public safety world? Where is the cellular DAS world? So reach out to one of the business development managers and they'll be able to help you with that. As we move forward in the presentation, we are going to talk around thermal cameras. As we look at thermal cameras, really looking at how do we detect body temperatures as part of a process to have people come into buildings. Obviously, this has become more and more of a necessity, a question for organizations as the COVID era has hit. So we have a short video and then we'll come back with another Q&A.
A thermal camera is just like a visual camera, except that in place of pixels, it has little things called microbolometers that are sensitive to infrared radiation. The camera then takes that information and transfers it to a false color palette, which gives us the visual image. So the more radiation you have, the change of color occurs, and therefore we have a gradient that tells us how hot something is. Cameras are a great adjunct tool. They have the ability to sense temperature readily. So if somebody comes in with an elevated body temperature or suspected of having an elevated body temperature, it gives the employer an opportunity to do further testing, a secondary testing with a secondary device, in order to make sure that person doesn't enter the general population. If a person exhibits an elevated body temperature, it's protocol to separate them from the general population and do a secondary screening. That's done with a secondary thermometer or temperature device of some sort, as well as asking them some questions. Very often it may be something as simple as they ran in from the parking lot because they were afraid of being late, or it could be hot outside. So we can help with the design and the engineering aspect of it, starting with some blueprints and some basic questions about what do you want to accomplish? How many people do you want to screen coming into your facility? One of the things that we would ask about is whether or not it's a one person at a time, low volume, or if we're looking at dozens or hundreds of kids coming in like to an elementary school. With that information and the floor plans, we can begin designing a system that will meet those needs. From there, we can create a budget, and from that budget, you can decide whether or not you want to move forward. Then we'd move to an on-site engineering platform. There's options for whether or not you want a permanent installation, like a school where you're going to have students coming in regularly for, say, 9 months out of the year, versus a once-in-a-while kind of scenario where you'd want to be able to either screen a particular area for an event or move that technology to different areas to capture different scenarios. So there's a temporary kiosk that we can set up with a cabinet, and we can also put together a permanent installation and have that readily available for anybody that wants to use it.
Wonderful. So we will be moving into the question and answer section around thermal cameras. We will bring on screen John Ray. John is a certified level 1 thermographer. I had to spell it phonetically. Certified level 1 thermographer. So John, could you maybe start where we started with Phil quickly on what is a certified level 1 thermographer? What does that mean?
Good question. So the Infrared Training Center provides a specific level of training and question tests that are required in order to be certified. Certification is a written document that guarantees a level of expertise or performance in a given category.
And you got that pre the COVID era, correct?
I did. Yep, I did. I saw the potential for infrared being used in a wide variety of platforms. It just happened to be a couple of months before COVID hit, so it was good timing, fortunate on my part.
So moving to the questions here, I hear the phrase used in the video, thermal and infrared. Are these terms the same? Are they interchangeable, or are they different?
So thermal is specific to relating to or producing or caused by heat as a definition. Infrared itself, it refers to a specific portion of the electromagnetic radiation spectrum. So they're similar, but they're not the same.
Great. Someone from a K-12 scenario asking if this has been deployed within a K-12 setting, and has it been effective?
Yes, actually, we've deployed these systems in the K-12 market. They have been very reliable. And as a matter of fact, in the first week of deployment, a COVID case was detected, captured, and documented. So keeping in mind that these systems are not a medically diagnostic tool, it's an analytical tool used to detect a thermal anomaly. So once an alarm is triggered, a secondary screening should take place, as mentioned in the video.
Yeah, so it's going to detect the elevated temperature. That is going to be the elevated temperature is going to be the trigger to be able to go and do another test, where then you kind of dig deeper into what's happening with that elevated temperature.
Absolutely correct.
So question here as to how do you know the camera is reading accurately?
So within the thermal camera industry, the best way to ensure accuracy is to include a black body. A black body is a calibrated space heater, for instance, as an analogy. It's digitally tuned, it's very, very accurate, and having that black body in the field of view of the thermal camera provides the software of the analytics a specific reference point. So they know within the software that that particular point in the screen is a specific temperature. Therefore, that temperature can be compared to any other temperature within the field of view. Therefore, they get high accuracy out of the systems.
Right. So another question here, are there any legal aspects that need to be considered when deploying this? I've heard various rumblings about considered a search, or some have made conjecture that this is a medical exam. Are you aware of anything like this in the Minnesota, North Dakota area?
Good question. So as it relates to privacy, the systems that we deploy do not retain any imaging. So from a storage standpoint, there would not be any issues there. These are non-intrusive, non-contact systems. Specific to any regulation as such, I do not know of any. No.
Okay. Another question here, does your technology match up with software that can manage employee and visitor data along with providing a COVID questionnaire? I think I'll take that one, John. I think as you look to the next section around Clear ID, these technologies can be married to help accomplish elements of that. I think we need to get through the specific scenario as to how do we pull that together? So yes, it is possible, but the specifics would need to be worked through, and you may need multiple technologies to be able to do that effectively. Rolling through the questions. Okay, I think we are good on the thermal camera detection questions. So we will move forward. Thank you, John, for your insights. We have these set up in our lab, so we are using thermal detection in our office. We got it set up. We can give you real live demos and a real sense of how this technology works. So if you want to check it out, we can get you more information. Moving forward, the next video is focused on Genotech Clear Id. Genotech is Clear Id really goes along with their Synergist platform, and this video describes how it can more effectively manage your video or card access control system. So we'll bring the video and we'll come back for a Q&A here shortly.
Clear Id helps people to gain access to a facility. It also allows you to manipulate staff access privileges. It also deals away with antiquated visitor management like paper sign-in or having to work through an email request system to allow somebody to come into the facility. So when you have an employee, let's say, who's hired in to the company, 2 years later they change from just a standard run-of-the-mill employee and now they're upper management and they make decisions based off of who has access to a given area. Well, now those individuals can be associated with groups or different policies so that they immediately gain access to an area that they should have gotten access to as a manager. Or they might be able to allow for the approving of specific area access or approvals into a space. You know, we think about we need to control access. Right now, all of those systems are cumbersome. They're all paper-based, driven by email. They're all driven by, hey, who has control of the lab? Who has control of the front door, the IT room, the server room? How should we gain access to those areas? Well, we need to figure out who the approver is. We have to work through security. We have to update the badge. Where does all that happen? So this application centralizes this and makes it all consistent across the board. You think of school districts, you think of, you know, corporate 500 type clients who they have all sorts of changes in their personnel who comes into the facility, also visitors. So registering and tracking all that can be really messy. And especially when you're leveraging paper or maybe some antiquated electronic system that doesn't fully encompass your access control. It might be one part visitor management, it might be one part access control, it might be one part paper, one part email. You know, this system combines all of those things into one centralized user interface. So effectively you can simplify it, streamline it, bring down your costs, bring down your risk, and force compliance. Let's say that you're a manager of a space and you want to throw an event. You want to invite a couple of visitors by to show them a demonstration of some product you have. Normally, the process would be, I need to fill out an email, give all of those people's names. Now imagine we live in the COVID world now, or we live in the space where we need to have somebody fill out an NDA. Did you send one to each one of those employees? Did they work through the temperature screening? Did they work through signing the affidavit? All of that is, again, a manual process. Now what I need to do is submit the request, import the names, their emails get sent to them directly with all the appropriate forms that they need to complete. All of those get completed, sent back to security. Security does the approval, or the manager who has responsibility for that space. And now all of those people can be sent an invite to the event. They can walk up to a kiosk and be able to have a badge printed without ever interacting with an individual if they need to gain access to the facility, or you can have them check in with guard staff. And then they're able to access their event. But all of this is done instantaneously via email communication, SMS text notification, and all of the approvers can get that detail in an expedited way. So I think one of the nice things about the kiosk is that it allows for a simple QR code check-in. And now they can take that QR code up to the kiosk, check themselves into the system, and then immediately print themselves out a visitor badge. That also starts a log through the system to allow the person who gave you the visitor access to be notified that you're there via email and SMS text, which is wonderful. So if you already have Genotech, you're part of the way there. We need to provide you with some licensing so that you can start to activate not only your site, but the identities that you're going to be utilizing through this application. It's as easy as call up your sales representative and say, I'm interested in looking at this technology a little deeper, and we can easily give you a quote for the number of sites that you have located and the number of identities you're looking to manage. A lot of manufacturers around the world, but this is why Genotech is getting so much market share, is because they have all sorts of subject matter experts and software engineers who are building solutions to help solve problems.
Moving forward into our Genotech Clear ID questions and answer section, we're going to be bringing on Travis Packinen. Travis Packinen is a pre-sales engineer for our practice. He is an RCDD, so understands the cabling infrastructure world, has a long history in the low voltage market, as well as within the physical security market. So understands the design, engineering around physical security systems and solutions. So moving to the question section, from where this sits within the organization, is this a on-premise application or is this some type of cloud application?
Yep. So this is hosted in the cloud, specifically Microsoft Azure. So this is something that integrates with your potentially on-prem or Genotech software as a service or as a solution platform. So effectively this sits in the cloud, and then you can access it through any computer workstation through a web browser.
So I have Genotech Security Desk 5.7. I know I need to update here, but curious, what level of Genotech programming do I need to be able to use Clear ID?
I believe it works with 5.8, but 5.9 is the current version where we would just start looking at your application to see if it's capable of supporting that.
Great, thank you. Another question here around, I work for an organization that has over 100 facilities across the country. Can this solution essentially scale? Can this be one unified solution across the country?
Yes, absolutely. And again, you don't have to deploy it across the country if that's the thought or the expectation. Effectively, you can choose whatever sites or the amount of locations that you want to activate this for. Let's say that you're an organization with a bunch of retail locations that don't really bring on visitors or need to really change access much. You might not choose to use Clear ID there, but maybe at a large corporate facility that might make sense, where you have a lot of visitors, people coming in. And again, you can decide to activate this at any given site within your portfolio.
So as I activate that from a licensing perspective, would we need to deploy a license for every person, or how does that work?
So it's licensed first by site and then by identity that you're looking to manage. So if we think about employees, we think about visitors who come to and from the site. If we want to maintain that ID or that identity through the system, we would have a license that would be used for that.
Okay. Another question here on the card side of the equation, and I think it's related to the visitor management kiosk and the printing process. What kind of card does this print? A standard card access badge or a paper badge?
So the kiosk is built for a paper badge. So it's just a simple sticker badge with a QR code on it. It can be printed with an image of the individual on there, and that can be set up to look however you want that to look. The other option that you have, though, if you're interested in getting somebody, let's say, temporary access to a facility, you can have those visitors pre-enrolled and then have a physical card access badge prepared for them so that they can then gain access to whatever in the area in the facility they're allowed to go.
So you just need to physically be able to hand that badge to somebody. So the printing wouldn't be done via the kiosk, but you could drive the visitor management platform to automate and streamline that process.
Correct. And I don't know that a lot of organizations would be interested in having a badge that has any capability of being used in the facility, present in the lobby without it being handed by an individual. So there is a physical security process that can be enforced then to make sure the right people get badges that should have them.
Got it. So next question here. We are looking to have people sign waivers. Sounds like this is around COVID. We are looking to have people sign waivers stating that they don't have a temperature prior to entering our building. Can Clear ID help with that process? Can that enforce this waiver signing process?
Yes, absolutely. So there is a new release that's coming that's going to incorporate some text-based checkoff with the kiosk, so that when you're enrolling an individual, they have to work through some of the fields that are there. Think about, again, COVID compliance, validating whether the person's traveled internationally, those types of details. And that should be coming out very soon here within the next few months. In regards to what we can do in the meantime, there's also a process that we can follow for additional documentation. So remember, all of this is automated. So effectively, we have the opportunity to take that data once we start to initiate a visitor coming to the facility, and then have security or whoever has management oversight of a space. We can force the process where they're sent the appropriate agreements or compliance documents, COVID forms, through that email and text-based visitation request. And then again, they can send that back through the security, get that approved well before they show up on site. So we know a lot of people have been struggling with time of individuals in the visitor component, where how long does it take them to get checked in? This can help to expedite that and ensure compliance.
Good answer. Another question here. We currently, have approval process for card access changes going through one department. It sounds like this changes that and distributes that approval process. Am I understanding that correctly? And how do you manage that change process when you deploy?
Yeah. So again, the approval process is improved, right? So we think about right now, again, there's a lot of cumbersome, difficult paper-based solutions, email notifications, all that other stuff. This can slot right into your current environment and actually speed up the process. You're not needing to go and find an individual. You're not needing to go and determine who has control or responsibility for a space. So this can really streamline communication. And then again, it's basically instantaneous. So the moment that you make that visitor request, which can be done in a few moments really through the GUI, you have the opportunity to get that sent back almost immediately. And sometimes we can have pre-granted approval for certain individuals coming into a facility. One thing that our clients sometimes struggle with is vendors who are coming to the site. So how do we want to allow someone access? Let's say it's Parallel who's coming in to do a cabling project or a security project. Well, we can set up temporary access and allow those individuals to come into the site, let's say for the duration that they're going to be working through the facility. That can be handled through an easy administration setup, and then their card can be granted access to the specific doors they're requesting. So I think this is leaps and bounds ahead of the traditional way we manage visitor management and access privileges.
Great. Thank you, Travis. Appreciate the insight and understanding. Genotech Clear Id, we do have the visitor management kiosk set up in our lab. We have the software set up in our lab. We can do demos, whether that's here in the lab or whether you want to conduct those remotely. Seeing the application in action, being able to look at the software and understand it is a great way to understand how it's being used. If you currently have a Genotech system, it's an add-on that can relatively easily be deployed with that system. If you're evaluating new card access platform, I think it is a key differentiator as to how Genotech really takes advantage of this layer to be able to manage your card access more effectively. So definitely worth looking at if you have interest. Moving on into the facial recognition component, we hear more and more about this technology being deployed. We'll talk briefly about it here in the next 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll bring Josh Johnson on to answer some questions around it.
Facial recognition is a biometric technology that maps attributes of a person's face, and then it compares and contrasts that information with images stored on a database. In the last 20 years, this has gone from Hollywood sci-fi tech to something that almost everybody has in their hands with things like Face ID. Operationally, it's applied in terms of either a recognized face or an unrecognized face, and that's an important distinction. When your phone recognizes your face, it unlocks the device. Similarly, when your security camera recognizes you, we can have that trigger a set of actions. Pretty much whatever you can think of. We can trigger outputs from that, we can send emails, we can send an alarm, we can turn a light on or off, an indicator light. pretty much if you can think of it, we can do it. Facial recognition is a powerful tool and we believe should augment your existing security system and not replace it. There's still some areas within your building where you want to have the highest level of security, and that's a card is going to be the best thing for that. But there may be other areas where you could loosen things up a little bit and use something like this to validate that the people that are supposed to be there are there and that people that aren't are not. Lots of businesses have areas within their organization that only certain people should be there. You could use this technology to notify you if somebody that's not supposed to be there is in that area, whether that be an alert through email or a text to your phone, you can know right away. So you could also use this technology in a busy lobby where your employees go through and get a literal green light and non-employees are flagged and have to go through a sign-in process. This doesn't necessarily need to be deployed in terms of surveilling people. You could use the facial recognition to inform an employee that a VIP or a C-suite employee has arrived on site and then dispatch somebody to go meet them and kind of roll out the red carpet, if you will. The technology itself has the ability to read from 45 degrees to the left or the right, or 30 degrees up or down. So you don't necessarily have to have somebody straight on with the camera in order to detect their face. This is used as a form of credential in the same way that your driver's license proves that you are who you are, in the same way that that card badge you hold that buzzes you into the door proves that you are that person. It's a form of credential that's used to validate your identity. We leverage this as a tool to increase our awareness and to help make our lives easier.
Great. Moving forward to the facial recognition question and answer section, I'm going to be bringing on Josh Johnson. Josh Johnson is another pre-sales engineer with our physical security solutions, has been very involved in camera selections, camera management, software selections, being able to navigate the waters, making sure we understand what the specific requirements are and what technologies would be able to meet those. So Josh, to start this out, I have a question for you around how does the system know the face? Does it learn them, or is there some other method that it uses to know which faces to detect?
Oh, great question. So basically, you've got a database with images stored on it, and you put those images on the database. It's not like some all-knowing computer that figures it out on its own. You determine which images you want on the database. The camera collects images and compares to those and then gives you information based off that comparison.
Great. So a follow-up question to that, in the age of COVID and I mean other things, masks being worn and glasses, is it able to look at faces and recognize them with things like masks, eyeglasses, beards, changes like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even going back to like an older passport photo as one of the reference images, it will recognize you. Obviously, you put a mask on, the accuracy is going to go down. We did some experimentation here with that, and once we added an image for the reference with wearing a mask, it suddenly was able to detect with a much higher accuracy. So again, there's some setup involved, but it can work with a mask on. And sunglasses, or even if the photo is aged, aged a few years, grown a beard, maybe a cool mustache.
Love it. Question here around integration of this. How does this integrate with Video Insight?
It's a great question. So it basically what you're looking to do is trigger a notification into the software. And again, based on whether it's a recognized or an unrecognized face, you can get an alert, and then sort of you determine at that point, what you want to do with that information, right? You've got the alert, the notification that you've got a match or that it doesn't match. It's an important distinction, and then you determine where to go from there. But certainly as an alert or an alarm, email or a text, again, integration can kind of go as far as you want to with it. But in Video Insight, it would definitely be something that would show up as a notification or an alert as a starting point, and you can go from there.
So it's able to integrate into Video Insight, also able to integrate into Genotech. So you can operate it from a standalone perspective if you don't have those platforms, or potentially pull it into your specific VMS. So, great questions. If you have specific VMSs, we can help navigate those waters as to the best way to deploy it. From a design perspective, as you're looking at an environment, you talked a little bit about kind of the angles of view, et cetera. How do you typically design these systems, and what do you need to be considering from an environmental perspective?
Yeah, great question. So when we deploy this, you have similar to the way we would deploy an entrance camera, something that, when you walk into a building, you've got a nice clear shot of somebody entering into your facility. Similar type of positioning you'd want with a facial recognition camera. It doesn't necessarily need to be a dedicated camera too, or, tying back to your comments about the VMS compatibility. This can be deployed alongside what you currently have. So you're not restricted to necessarily being on a certain software platform. You can deploy it along with it, and you can just put in a camera or two. But positioning wise, we'd put it somewhere where you have people coming in and out of the building where you can get a nice clear shot of their face.
Great. So another question here around essentially they're saying, hear about this within kind of city surveillance, et cetera. But have you seen private entities deploy this type of technology? And what were the drivers behind that?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to some of the cases in the video, and that you can use this just to make sure, make employees' lives easier, whether it's something you integrate with like a gate or access, or just getting into an area where employees are supposed to be and not the general public. It's almost a softer way to let people in, or through a position, as opposed to traditional card access. But obviously, privacy is very important, and so you could be using this, within your organization for your employees. We also have technologies we can deploy that can protect privacy for people. Whether that's intelligently blurring people's faces, masking out areas where you don't want to be recording. But there's lots of technologies we have around that, and just wanted to throw that out there.
I think that's good. Are there any school districts currently using this product?
Right now, the products we're looking at, relatively new. So we do have it available that we're testing with and working with. We have not deployed this at a school yet. There's been interest and questions on it. But again, I think that it's something I think people are still trying to wrap their heads around. That's something we have here, we have available, and we could help determine if that's a good fit.
Yeah, and I think if we look at a national scale, while Parallel may not have done any school districts yet, I think that there are case studies from around the country of school districts that have used this type of technology. Last question here: facial recognition with mask use and COVID. Does this diminish the effectiveness of the facial recognition technology?
I would say, yeah, definitely, absolutely. It's an obstruction towards the images it's going to be comparing it to. But as I said, if you have a reference image of a person with a mask, that accuracy reading is going to go up.
Great. All right. Thanks, Josh. Really appreciate the insights. And as we're looking at facial recognition, we have it set up in our lab. We have used the technology and would love to get demos associated with the technology to be able to walk to the specifics as to how it's set up, how it's used, that whole structure. It's really a great opportunity to learn. And I think as the years go on, we're going to see more and more facial recognition deployed, whether that's within the kind of municipality world or within private entities. The other thing I've heard a lot about is VIP type of treatment for faces that are recognized, being able to say, okay, this person's walked into the building, and then be able to respond to that. So thanks, Josh. We really appreciate it. If you have more questions related to facial recognition, please reach out to one of our salespeople and they can help you navigate those waters. As we end the presentation, I wanted to reiterate, if you are looking for more information, Dale mentioned getting a tour of the lab or demoing specific technologies that you saw here today or that you have interest in. Reach out to this team. They'll be able to help you to get those scheduled, and we can put something together for you to really meet your needs. They're available. Our job is to really help educate around these technologies. We love showing them off. Our pre-sales team loves talking about them, understanding the goals and objectives, and being able to help people move forward. So reach out to these people. They'll be able to help you move the ball forward and manage that process. As we stated at the beginning of the presentation, we do have prizes. We won't be drawing for those live, but we will be using those that attended today. We'll be drawing from those. You have a Yeti cooler, Apple AirPods, Topgolf gift card, some Visa gift cards as well. The rules just to apply, it will be drawn randomly and must be won by client. So we'll be getting back to you here today. So if you don't hear today, unfortunately you didn't win, but hopefully you got some good content and some good understanding of the technologies that we have. We very much appreciate your business, very much appreciate you joining us today. We look forward to seeing you in person in our labs in the weeks and months ahead, and look forward to celebrating with you in the open house format, hopefully at our facility next year. So thank you again. This presentation will be available on our website and blog, so we'll be sharing this. If you have people that you want to share it with, we encourage you to do so. And any other elements, if you want to dive deeper into the technologies, we can definitely help with that. So thank you, stay safe, and have a good day. Appreciate it.